Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Business Bites. My name is Henry. I am here from the Kent Invicta Chamber of Commerce. I am absolutely delighted to be joined by Simon Marshall today, who is going to be teaching you all about how you can boost productivity in your workplace. Obviously, incredibly topical. Something that I'm looking to get something out of today as well. Simon, so no pressure. I want to be boosting my productivity by the end of it. Um, just before we do kick things off properly, can I just make a note that if you do have any questions throughout the session, please do just jot these down in the meeting group chat. We will get to these at the end in a dedicated Q&A. And for those of you who have joined, please can I just ask you that you rename yourself to your full names so we know who you are for registration purposes. So that is it from me. I am now going to pass you over to Simon. Simon, over to you.
Great. Well, look, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. And yeah, look, no pressure from you, Henry, there, but yeah, I'll certainly what I can do what I can do today to give you some ideas and some suggestions about how to improve productivity. So actually, the first thing just to answer is, and by the way, look, type it in the chat box or shout it out. What do people understand from productivity? What is productivity? I'll just give you, a few seconds there to see if anybody's got any responses on what is productivity. Actually, I'm gonna ask, while people are doing that, Henry, I'm gonna ask you, what's productivity to you?
I was just typing actually, and I think I've gone along the same lines as Gabriella in efficiency and time management. I was writing working efficiently, so I'd talk about efficiency for sure.
Yeah, great. Okay. And thank you, Gabriella. I saw what you put in the chat box there. So thank you for that as well. And look, in its simplest form, productivity is basically taking output and dividing it by input. Okay. So the level of productivity is, okay, how much output do you get compared to the input that you put in? And the result is how productive you are or a business is. So in its simplest form. But we're going to come on to that in a bit more detail, and I'll explain how this works. But first of all, look, I'm not going to dwell on this, but a little bit about me. So I'm Simon Marshall, as Henry mentioned there, and I'm a business growth specialist and executive coach and trainer. Okay, so now I've worked with dozens of business owners and leadership teams across Kent and East Sussex, helping them boost productivity, improve team performance, and build stronger, more sustainable businesses. And as a business coach, my role is, as it says on the screen there, to unlock people's potential so they can maximize their own performance and that of their teams. Okay, so that's a little bit about me. What I want to just go on to here is actually what you're going to get from the next 30 minutes. So this session is all about productivity, but not in the work harder, hustle more kind of way. Instead, what we're going to explore is why productivity in the UK is actually falling. What that means for you and your businesses, and more importantly, what you can do about it. So I'm going to share practical, proven strategies to help you improve productivity, increase employee engagement, and get more from your training and your development efforts. And I'll be backing that up with real world examples from businesses like yours so that you leave here with ideas that you can put into practice straight away. Okay, so that's what we're going to go through today, and I hope that meets everybody's expectations of what they were expecting from this webinar. Okay, so first of all, we've got a figure there of 540 billion. Anybody got any ideas of what that figure actually is? So again, just type it in the chat box or shout it out. Anybody got any ideas of what that is? Elon Musk wage, great one. I like that. He probably earns more than that actually, but yeah, okay, great response. Okay, so what that is that is how much number of seconds a year. Okay, another good guess. But it's actually approximately what low productivity is costing UK businesses. Okay. So low productivity is costing UK businesses approximately £540 billion per year. Yeah. Based on the, and how that's calculated is that's based on the average cost of £18,000 per employee. Okay. So on average, low productivity is about £18,000 per employee, which totals 540 billion for UK businesses. So just have a think about how much it might be costing your business. And before we go into detail, what I want to do is I want to give you share a few things with you so we can put this into context, okay, before we share some ideas. So the first thing to point out is that SMEs, like you, and are the backbone of the nation's economic activity. Okay. And SMEs count for a significant portion of employment and gross domestic product in the UK. So working together to improve efficiency, adapt innovative technologies, and enhance skill levels, we can drive economic growth, boost competitiveness, and create more high quality jobs. And increased productivity within SMEs not only strengthens resilience and profitability, but it also contributes to the overall economic stability and prosperity of the UK. And this is why I am so passionate about productivity, because it's us, the SMEs, that actually can make the changes. It's what we can do will then have a positive impact on the UK economy. So therefore, fixing the UK economy hinges on the ability of SMEs to increase productivity. And let me just explain a little bit more about this. Now, I'm going to apologize in advance for some stats and figures that I'm going to share with you. But I want to do this because I think this really sort of demonstrates the scale of this. So first of all, here we've got the UK national debt is a major issue. Okay. And it currently stands at £2.87 trillion. £2.87 trillion. And as you can see on this graph here, it's increased significantly since about 2000. Yeah, when it was about 345 billion. Anybody know any reasons why in 2000 it significantly increased? Again, shout it out, put it in the chat box. COVID, yeah, that had a factor a bit later on in 2020. You can see a rise here where that went up. Yeah. What about back here in 2000? Gordon Brown sold out gold. Yeah, actually, you're not too far off there. Actually, absolutely right. So the government under Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, they significantly increased public spending in places like healthcare, education, infrastructure. Okay, so look, a great idea, yeah. Look, and something we want to see the government doing is investing in those sort of places. The thing is, what they did is they funded it by debt rather than taxation. Okay, again, not a bad idea. Oh, hold on, I've clicked on forward. Let's go back again. Yeah, not a bad idea. Because their idea was that by investing in healthcare and education infrastructure, it would boost the economy and then we'd be able to repay the debt, the money that we'd borrowed. Yeah. So again, a good idea. The problem was after that, it didn't work out. We had the global financial crisis and other factors, as you said, like COVID, etc., that meant that actually that strategy didn't work. And as you can see, actually, the debt has gone up and up and up. So this year, we'll pay around 105 billion of interest. Okay, just 105 billion in interest. Imagine what we could do with 105 billion pounds. And again, to put that into context, does anybody know when we repaid the debt from the money that we borrowed to fund World War II? Anybody got any ideas? (1990s). Okay, it's actually later than that. It was December 2006. December 2006, we repaid the final part of the debt that we borrowed to fund World War II. So imagine how long it's going to take for our, well, not even us, but our grandchildren's grandchildren probably to repay our debt of 2.87 trillion. And so we've got to do something because the government can't do it alone. So again, just to put this into context, what I've got here is a graph showing the UK national debt as a percentage of GDP. It's just another way of showing it. So we can see at the top here that actually the debt as a percentage of GDP was high during the World War. You know, we obviously had to borrow a lot of money, and our output wasn't very high, and it gradually came down over the years to it came to a level here where it plateaued out, and then as you can see in 2000, for the reasons I just mentioned, it started to increase again, and you got the financial crisis, and here COVID and energy crisis and inflation. So as you can see, back in the 1920s, it was 140%. It came down to around about 40%, and then it's gradually increasing again. Okay, and we're back up at about 95% of national debt compared to our GDP. So this graph shows UK productivity, which is calculated as GDP, so output per hour worked, input. Okay, so output is the GDP, input is the hours worked. Okay, and as you can see here, that about 2008, it was a bit of a turning point. So before that, we were over sort of 50 pounds of productivity per hour worked. And it's gradually come down and down and down to where it is now with just under over 40 pounds. Okay. And to put this into context, okay, productivity would have had to have been around about 96 pounds today to have matched 2000's productivity. So in other words, with inflation, that 50 pounds would have to be 96 pounds today just to have grown with inflation, and actually we're just over 40 pounds. So not only has it reduced in real terms, it's reduced because of inflation as well. Okay. Now, to make this a bit clearer, let me put this in the context of other European cities. Oh, sorry, countries. So as you can see here, we've got where's the UK, United Kingdom here. Okay, so we're 11th out of 16 European countries. Top for productivity is Norway, Luxembourg, Ireland, etc. The ones below us are Italy, Spain, Portugal, and Greece. Now, back in the global financial crisis, I used to work up in London, and we used to call those countries the pigs, because they were in such dire situations, they were going bankrupt. And the reason we called them the pigs, because it was Portugal, Italy, Greece, and Spain, pigs. Okay, so we are only just above those countries in our productivity, just over 40 pounds. If I put that into context of some selected global countries, we're way behind the US. This is now in US dollars, by the way. The previous slide was in sterling. This is in US dollars, if you're wondering why it's slightly different. So United States are around about sort of 75 US dollars. And we're down at about 55 US dollars. Okay. And again, you can see China is significantly below us. We're actually way ahead of them, but they are improving rapidly. So unlike us, where we're deteriorating, they're actually improving rapidly. Okay, so roughly 6% annual growth over the last 20 years, which is equivalent to about an increase of over 200% over that period. Okay, so as you can see, we're way behind Europe. We're way behind other global countries as well. So again, a factor that contributes to this is working hours, because as I say, there's two factors here, the output and the input. So to put this into context again, we have one of the highest working hours in Europe. Okay, we're about the same as Greece, slightly less than Greece, only just. Okay, but still on average about 36 hours per week on average. Germany's at the lowest at 26 hours per week. Okay, so our productivity is really low despite how hard everybody's working. Okay, so this is, again, we're working really hard, but we're not getting the productivity for the hours that are being put in. So I just want to bring all of that together a second, and then we're going to focus on, well, why and what we're going to do about it. So just in summary of what I've sort of said, okay? The UK has 2.87 trillion of debt. We're paying around 105 billion per annum of interest. Yeah, the UK national debt as a percentage of GDP is at its highest point since World War II. UK productivity has dropped in real terms since 2000. We're 11th out of 16 European countries in terms of productivity, way behind the US. And we have one of the longest working weeks in Europe. Doesn't sound great, does it? So why is that? And what do we do about it? So first of all, why is that? Okay. So what this graph shows is employee engagement. This is from Gallup's 2024 State of the Global Workplace report. And as you can see, we only have 10%, or only 10% of UK employees are engaged in their roles. That places us 33rd out of 38 European countries. Only 10% of our workforce is engaged with the work that they do. And just to put that into context, employee engagement refers to the emotional commitment and connection that employees have to their work, their team, and their organisation. Okay, so for years and years and years now, Gallup have been working with global businesses measuring employee engagement. And what they've done in this State of the Global Workplace report is pull all that information together. And the factors that contribute to employee engagement are job satisfaction, commitment, so in other words, a desire to stay with the organisation long term, motivation, which is measured by about going above and beyond in their duties, and alignment with the company's values. They're the key things that are measured through well, it used to be called the Gallup 12. I think they changed it now to the Gallup 14. There's 12 questions that are asked. The other thing, so that's one thing. That's one reason why our productivity is so low compared to other countries, because our employee engagement is so low. The other thing is our training. As you can see on this slide, on average, UK companies only invest 26 hours of training in their team. So that's about half an hour a week. Compared to the US, which is around about 34 hours a year. And for context here, I've just put healthcare professionals, 50 hours. is invested in training healthcare professionals, which I don't know about you, I'm pretty pleased about, because if I'm going into healthcare, I want them to be really well trained. So just have a think with you personally, and also any employees that you might have in your business. How much training and developing are they getting, and how much training and development are you doing? By the way, the fact that you are on this webinar today is actually demonstration that you want to learn new things. You want to learn, you want to train, you want to develop, which is great. So well done for doing that. Okay. So this probably explains in part why US productivity is 70% higher than the UK. Okay. So we've got two things there. One is employee engagement, and two is training and development. So let's look at this in a bit more detail. So I'm going to share with you some tips now in terms of how you can improve productivity. Okay, so we're going to cover three areas: productivity within a business, employee engagement, and training and development. Okay, so let's break those three down. So the first one is improving productivity within a business. Okay, now you can see a list of things that on the screen there: implement a default diary, systemize repetitive tasks, etc. But let me put this into context. So we worked with a mechanical and electrical contracting firm, okay, that was based in Kent. Okay, and it was growing fast, but the directors were overwhelmed. Okay, their team often worked late, emails were just never ending, and projects regularly overran. Yeah. So when we started working together, we quickly spotted three core areas. Okay. The first one was there was no structure to the directors' weeks. Okay. They were just firefighting, constantly firefighting. The second one was they had too many reactive tasks, okay, rather than proactive plan tasks. And the second thing was unclear performance expectations. Okay, their team didn't know what was expected of them. Okay, so what we did is we introduced a default diary across the leadership team. Okay, and a default diary is structuring your working week, allocating blocks of time to the most important things that you need to do. So for instance, with the management team, we allocated Mondays for planning, Fridays for strategy, and other key slots in the week for uninterrupted deep work. Okay, and what I mean by deep work is the work that was really going to make a difference to the business. Okay. Then what we did is every project was given a clear process and delegated tasks. Okay, it was supported by documented standard operating procedures. Okay, so what was once only in the director's head was now on paper and repeatable. So what that meant was the directors didn't have to do it. They could delegate it and give it to other people to do. When it was in their heads, nobody else could do it. Okay. The next thing we did was that site managers were given KPIs, key performance indicators, around job delivery times. Okay. So we introduced sort of three things there to measure: job delivery times, quality scores, and labor hours. Okay. Now, just to put this again, just to explain this, a lot of people are concerned about KPIs. Oh, it's just a stick to hit us with, or whatever. They get nervous about KPIs. Oh, it's micromanagement. If KPIs are done properly, they're the complete opposite of that. Okay, KPIs identify what's working and what's not working to enable you to work with that person and help them achieve what they need to achieve. Because it might not be their fault. It could be because they don't have systems and processes. They don't have the technology they need, or the machinery they need, or it might be that they've got too much work. And it's the KPIs that identify that to enable that to be focused on. So for the first time, results were visible and celebrated. They stripped out 2 unproductive weekly meetings and replaced them with short stand-up. By the way, I recommend this. If ever you want a short meeting, have a stand-up meeting. Okay, it's always a lot quicker. And they did that every Monday. Okay, so within 3 months, they reported a 20% improvement in project margin, and the directors were home by 6 o'clock for the first time in years. Okay. And it was just by implementing those 5 things on the screen. Okay. So let's move on to the next thing here, which is improving employee engagement. So again, there's a list on the screen here of things that you can do to improve employee engagement. But I don't like just to give you a list. I like to put these things into context. So in relation to this one, we worked with a 12-person marketing agency. They were based in East Sussex. And they had a talented team and a strong client base. Okay, but morale was really dipping. Okay, staff turnover was creeping up, and several people had become disengaged. So after what we did was we did an internal survey. We also had a few tough conversations, and we discovered the problem. And the problem was the team didn't feel heard or recognized. That was why. The team didn't feel heard or recognized. And this is what we did about that. We introduced weekly shout-outs where team members could nominate each other for small wins. Okay. If any of you have read the book, The New 1 Minute Manager, which, by the way, I would recommend, there's 3 things in there that good managers should do: 1 minute goals, 1 minute praise, and 1 minute feedback. Okay, this weekly shout-outs were about 1 minute praise. We set up monthly what's working, what's not for them, where everyone could suggest changes, and leadership committed to acting on at least 1 idea per month. Because it's no good just coming up with ideas. If the team come up with ideas and none of them are acting on, what's going to happen? It's going to dry up. The idea is going to dry up. The founder shared more about where the business was going, about their vision. Okay, and what they did is they linked it to each team member's role in the bigger picture. And I don't know whether you've heard this story before. Again, I don't even know whether it's a bit of an urban myth, but I think it shows a great point. And the story is this: that one of the US presidents went into NASA to have a look round. And as he was looking around NASA, he bumped into one of the, what Americans call them, one of the janitors. And he said to the janitor, what's your role around here? What do you do? And the janitor said, I'm helping to put man on the moon. And the reason that he could do that is because he was able to link his role to what the overall vision of the business was. And he knew that by doing his role, keeping things clean, keeping things tidy, meant that that was contributing to putting man on the moon. And that's what the founder did in this business. Okay. And they also trained the team to and had one-to-one with them. Not, by the way, not just about tasks, but about career aspirations, about well-being. They took an interest in their team. And when a long-term team member expressed a desire to move into, like, let's say, strategy work, they made it happen, showing the team that ambition was encouraged. And again, the results from that was within 6 months, client retention improved, employee reviews rose, and staff turnover dropped to its lowest point in 4 years. Just through a few simple things. So look, hopefully you're picking up so far as we're going through this, that actually these things aren't complicated. They're really easy, obvious things to do. But the key thing is that we can overlook them. We don't do them. The thing with the thing with easy things to do is that they're also easy not to do. So look, let's have a look at the final thing here, improving training and development. Okay. So again, put this into context. A growing chain of specialty coffee shops in Kent that we worked with, they had baristas that were friendly and skilled, but inconsistent. They were like inconsistent across the branches that they had. Okay. And what that was doing was holding them back from franchising because they wanted to roll out more branches. So when we started working with them, we identified the issue wasn't motivation, it was training. So it wasn't, again, you're probably picking up another thing here. It's not the team's fault. Okay, it's because they weren't being trained. So new team, how it worked was new team members learned on the fly. There was no structure for the development. So here's what we did. We helped them create a barista development path, outlining clear levels of progression from junior baristas to head trainers. Training was broken down into bite-sized modules, and it was delivered during the quieter times, because obviously there's peaks and troughs in a coffee shop. Every module included theory, a video, and a live practice session. The team leaders were coached to become on-the-job mentors, using checklists and regular feedback loops, and they used a simple skills tracker. Okay? And they just set it up in Google Sheets to monitor who had completed what training and where each store needed more support. And the founder also measured impact, noting that the stores with fully trained baristas had higher order values, lower waste, and better Google reviews. Within 4 months, consistency had improved dramatically, and they opened the first franchise location with confidence. Okay, so look, there's just a few selected ideas. Obviously, there's loads of these sort of things. What I'm going to do actually after this, I'm going to, I've got an ebook, so I'll send that to Henry, and he can share it, a link to that with anybody that would like it. He can send that out. It gives 20 to 25 top tips to improve team productivity. Okay, so look, just to bring this to a conclusion. This is not something the government can fix alone. Money comes from businesses and individuals. And on the whole, individuals get their money from businesses. It's down to the businesses to increase their profits. More profit equals more tax. Okay. Now, I don't know about you guys. I don't mind paying more tax if I'm making more profit. I don't like paying more tax on the same profit. So if I'm making more profit and making more tax, paying more tax, I don't mind. But also what that means is the potential for higher wages, which means the employees then pay more tax. So the UK already has the longest working hours in Europe. So productivity is the key. Earn more while working less. So with that in mind, Henry, back to you. And have we got any questions?
Perfect, Simon. Thank you very much. Took the words right out of my mouth. If anybody does have any questions, please do unmute and ask away. We didn't have any in the chat. That was an incredibly engaging session, so it was nice to see so many people joining in throughout. But yeah, now is your time to ask if there were any specific questions. Like Simon said, we will be sharing the link to the ebook with you all afterwards, for you to have a look through and hopefully implement within your teams. Any questions at all before we do wrap up? Now is your time to ask. Judy, would you like to unmute to ask your question?
Hi, yeah, I just wondered what sort of is the typical fee you charge clients for a project?
Great question, but really difficult to answer because it depends on the scale of the project, the type of business, what they're looking to achieve. So it could start something like £540 a month. It could go right up to tens of thousands of pounds per month. The tens of thousands tends to be where I work with large businesses. Their directors run training sessions for them. executive training, that sort of thing, and the lower fee might be, you know, for one-off specific tasks, something like that. So yeah, it's a good question, but it's very difficult to answer without knowing what the business is and what's involved.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect, Judy. Thank you very much. Vince, you've unmuted. Do you have a question at all? No, I don't think so. Perfect. Well, that will be that. That does bring us nicely to the end of today's session. Simon, you've just brought up one last slide. Do you want to quickly go through that?
Yeah, it was only just to leave you with a lasting thought, is that productivity is never an accident, okay? It's always the result of a commitment to excellence, okay? Intelligent planning and focused effort, okay? So in other words, we've got to take action. These webinars, by the way, don't work. I say that tongue in cheek because it's only the work that you do after these webinars that makes things happen. So yeah, take action. And that's it from me.
Simon, thank you ever so much for hosting this webinar today. Everybody that's joined the session and interacted in the chat, thank you ever so much as well. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. I've been Henry from the Kent Invicta Chamber. Take care.